you need to find out exactly who you are. Because right now, it just sounds like football. Everything out of your mouth, it sounds like football. And sweetie, football is not who you are, it's what you did.
Hey, welcome to Your Work Friends. I'm Mel Plett,
I'm Francesca Ranieri.
and we break down the now and next of work so you stay ahead. Well, today we're talking about reinvention. You and I are very familiar with this journey. Not the cute kind of invention, not the new year, new me reinvention for your life, but the real kind when you try to make a transitional journey, something that you might have given your identity to, which can really shake up your rhythm and your confidence or your sense of worth overall. And that stuff goes away. And then you're trying to figure it all out in the moment and going, what the hell? Who am I now?
Yeah. Which is exactly why we wanted to talk to Alex Molden. Today, Alex is a leadership advisor and a coach and a keynote speaker. He is a wonderful person in life and at work. But before that, Alex spent 8 years in the NFL. Before that, he was a Hall of Famer at University of Oregon. He was a first-round draft pick in the NFL as well. This is someone that had built a life and an identity and a celebrity around being in the NFL. Listen, you and I have had to pivot, but we haven't had to pivot like that.
That's a hard pivot. What's that Farmers commercial? We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Yes.
I feel like he's that for the pivot.
Yes. So we wanted to have Alex on to talk about how he actually reinvented himself. Not only is Alex just incredibly honest and shares some really vulnerable stories about this, but he talks about what it really feels like. And he's giving you a really practical framework for how to rebuild and navigate this in a really, really authentic way. This is truly for anyone that's navigating a layoff, a retirement, a transition, a pivot, or just this moment that, I don't know about you, Mel, happens to me like every 7 years where I'm just like, I'm ready for a new.
Yeah, same.
And with that, here's Alex. Alex, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Francesca, how are you?
Living the dream.
What's up, Mel? It's good to see you again.
All right. We're here to talk about how do you reinvent yourself, because so many people are either thinking about doing that, desperately wanting to do that, or having that put upon them right now, whether they're coming out of a layoff or retirement, a big life transformation. And we don't think there's anyone better to talk about this than you. You are a first-round draft pick from the University of Oregon, Hall of Famer, been in the NFL for 8 years, which I am told that's a long time.
Yeah, it's twice the average. Typically, the average player nowadays plays 3.5 years.
That's a lot. Right? I find it funny, just as a personal aside, that I'm on a call talking about reinventing yourself with somebody who has been in the NFL for 8 years. Mel was a D1 athlete, and I got kicked off my intramural soccer team for being horrible. When did you start playing football?
So I started playing football. I was later in terms of development, football IQ. I didn't start playing organized football until 8th grade.
All right. But it was a big part of your life for a long time.
Absolutely.
You have had football as part of your life for a very long time, reached the highest of the highs, stayed there for a very long time, and then it ended.
Yeah.
And then you had to figure out, what do you do next? Take us through that first day. I'm curious about the first day after you're done with your NFL career. What is that day? What does that look like?
Man, okay. I like this already.
All right.
When you do something for so long
Yeah.
and your ability is high, and then you have, with that ability, you get a platform. And with this platform, especially here in America with football, there's a lot of people that look up to that platform. And during that whole journey is you have to get to a frame of mind where you have your feelings you have to put in your back pocket. Meaning there was many a days I didn't want to go to practice. I didn't want to go work out. I didn't want to go run. It was rainy, it's wet, it's snowy, any type of excuse. You have to put that aside and make it so there is no choice,
Mm.
right? There wasn't a choice from when I started and I fell in love with this sport. Later on, I found out what type of vehicle it was. Once I found out the word scholarship, athletic scholarship, I could get school paid for, then everything else changed. I had no choice since my sophomore year until I was 30. There was
Mm.
no choice. And what happens is that becomes your identity. And it's good, but it's bad because you start to get confused. That becomes your identity. And when you separate from it, you start to figure out, and I didn't understand this, that football was something that I did. It was not who I was. And for years, I believed that was who I was. And I know there's a lot of people out there that feel the exact same way, but it's not football. It can be with the job, with your role as a parent, right? And then your kids go off to college or they move out the house. And then now you're like lost. For me, for that a period of time, like that next day, there was a relief. Hold on, what? I don't have a schedule. I don't have to go work out at 7:30 in the morning. I don't have to go run. I don't got to go train. I don't got to go tackle 230-pound running backs. Oh, I can play golf. And so there was a feeling of relief, but that kind of faded after the glow of retirement had fell off.
Yeah. I took a year off from corporate, and I remember, not to compare my career with your career, it's interesting because you have this honeymoon. Ooh, this is fun. This is a novelty, right? I get to just be and live my life the way I want to. And then there's this reality of, oh, now I need to do the work to reestablish who am I. When did that hit for you? What was that journey of, oh shit, now I need to come back to Alex?
There wasn't really a coming back because
Yeah.
Alex was gone.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I was football. That was my identity.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand it until I went on a job interview after about 6 months playing golf, working out whenever I wanted to. That was cool. I thought, okay, I want to do something else. What is there available? Some friends, some neighbors. Hey, Alex, you should get into real estate. I have a person. And so I did that. I went and shadowed them for a week. I even started to try to get my license. I was like, this ain't me. After about a week or two, this ain't me. I don't want to do this. So then it was like, oh man, you'd be great in insurance, MetLife, or whatever that is, right? I shadowed him for a week. Got a suit and tie, go to the office and all this type of stuff. This ain't me. Then we moved up here to Portland. And I said, okay, well, I need to figure something out. Oh, it's the nonprofit sector. I did a lot of nonprofit work, volunteering, donating, all that type of stuff. And I went on a job interview, and that was the moment that changed the trajectory of my life. Because thank goodness, this older Black lady, she told me the truth. I went on a job interview and I was prepared. I knew how to break down my opponent. So I did my research. I knew how to do that. When I went in there, I was killing the interview. She's asking me questions, who do they serve? And I was killing it. Then everything flipped when she started asking me questions about me. Everything out my mouth sounded like football. Finally, she said, Alex, I'm going to stop this interview and you're not going to get this job. Let me give you some advice. Before you go on any more job interviews, you need to find out exactly who you are. Because right now, it just sounds like football. Everything out of your mouth, it sounds like football. And sweetie, football is not who you are, it's what you did. Got up, walked me to the front door, shook my hand, went to my car, and wept. I cried my eyes out. That was the lowest point I've ever felt. And I buried that story. I can speak it now without bawling and reliving all that feeling. But that was something that changed my life. And it started, instead of me figuring out what I wanted to do, I need to find out who I am.
did you do that?
One of those deals where when you're doing something for a long time, you put blinders on and you start to see things through a different lens. So I ended up falling into a coach. At first, I brought him on to teach me how to speak because I was getting into the speaking industry, speaking on leadership and adversity, communication. And so I thought I hired a speaking coach, but really he was more of a life coach. And he was just asking me questions. And then he would tell me the words that I'm saying and what it actually meant. That was painful. It was painful, but it was like, no, not me. Hold on. No, that is me.
Thank you for your vulnerability, because I think a lot of people are in that position. I went through the same thing, Alex. Like, you grew up your whole life being told this is what you should be by a lot of different people. I think a
Yes.
lot of people, especially Francesca and I talk about this in the US specifically, right? We're, as young kids, even adults are like, what do you want to be when you grew up? It's like, how do I know? I'm 5. I have no idea. And I had a high school teacher once say, you're going to change your careers 8 times. And I thought that was crazy when he said that to us in senior year. I think that's really true, especially as you start to find yourself and break away from what everyone has told you this is what success looks like. And you went on that journey. What did you discover about yourself through that process that changed everything for you?
It changed everything. I think, number one, my world was distorted because of what football had did for me, right? It made me a celebrity. And with that, depending on how high you go or how good the game you just played, you get free passes on your character. Many times when I'm driving past the speed limit and I get pulled over and then they check my ID. Oh, hey, man, how was the game? How was it like playing for Mike Ditka? And then it just gets bypassed. Hey, just make sure you slow down around these areas. Oh, okay, just Mr. Officer. So that happens time and time again. And it's not just with that, but it's with many different deals. We get a free pass, and to the point where you start to feel entitled. And I was one of those entitled athletes until that platform, when I stopped playing, all that entitlement, it was still there a little bit, but not everybody was putting up with. And thank goodness I was raised right. But there was a shift in terms of, man, how people treat you. And you get used to being treated a certain way. You know, all of a sudden, like that celebrity, that platform isn't there anymore. Now you got to battle exactly who you are. And you get a choice. You get to choose who you want to be. For me, I was like, okay, what is something that really, and I use it today, and it's a game changer, but it was something that gave me a foundation. One of the big reasons that allowed me to play 8 years instead of the 3.5, it was something that was taught to me by a coach. Once he gave me this framework, everything, this complex game became simple. So I used that framework because it gave me success on the football field. I started to use that framework when I stepped away, but it took me a while to figure out this whole thing because I was stuck.
Walk us through that process when you talk about the framework. What is that framework for you?
There we go. That was the hook. I was waiting for you to ask me. I'm not going, it's just like how I coach my clients. You have to give me permission. They have to give me permission before I can pour into them. So this framework is called assignment, alignment, adjustment. And I've added something else to it. And it's called assessment. On the football field, once my coach, his name was Willie Shaw, and it happened after football practice. It was my first interaction with him. And he was a guru in terms of defensive back play. He coached it for 20 plus years. He had great success wherever he went. And then I had a chance to be with him for 1 year. And thank goodness it was my second year. So it was early on in my career. And he said, Alex, do you want to play a long time in this league? I said, yes, of course. I want to play a long time. Play a long time, make a lot of money, get interceptions, all that good stuff, right? He said, okay, you have to master these 3 things that would give you success. And I listened to him. He said, alignment. You have to be lined up correctly every time, no matter how you feel. He said, I watched you and you were misaligned half of the time. You're supposed to be outside leverage, you're inside. You're supposed to be 8 yards off, you're at 7. Like, you are going up against the best athletes on planet Earth. You have to be aligned correctly, because if you're not, you're giving them an advantage over you before the ball is even snapped. So I've never heard that before. Like, I've never heard just broken down. It was always how, okay, you can line up at this and based on your speed and who you're going up. No, this is what it is. There was no gray. Check. And then the second thing was assignment. Alex, you need to know your role inside and out. We had playbooks. Like in the NFL, our playbooks were like this thick. In college, they were like this thick. I knew how to study. So when he said that, he said, you need to know your role inside and out. I said, okay. You also need to know everybody else's role who's on the field with you, because you need to be able to hold them accountable. Or if you're expecting somebody to be there and they're not, you need to be able to address that. Don't wait till we go to the sidelines and we talk to coaches. So I need to know everybody's role, everybody's job. Not saying I'm going to take their job, but I need to know it so I can be able to, I'm expecting you here. That means I can play more aggressive here. I can check. Okay, so I need to get in that playbook and read it all over again and look at it through somebody else's lens. And then the third thing, he said adjustment. You need to be ready to adjust, Alex. He said, this isn't peewee football where they just hike the ball and there's no movement. There's going to be some type of audible, some type of motion, some type of shift. You need to be ahead of this. You need to be thinking what if this happens? What is your adjustment? He said, you were behind the whole time. For me, the fourth thing I came up with, this is assessment. You need to be able to assess what you're doing, who you're becoming, what you have available to you, and assess it. And then now with those 4 things, you can make better decisions. You can set yourself up for success and then see roadblocks down the way by having these 4 things set up. I took that. It took me years after that conversation with that nonprofit lady to develop that. Once I developed that and I started using it in my own life, things took off.
I'd love to dive into how you applied that in your own life after, because the framework in football, so you had the playbook, right? But in life, there's a bunch of different playbooks going on between family, profession, kids, all of these different playbooks that you're now working from and then developing your own. So how did you use that framework to then develop your master playbook for how you operate in the world?
Once I started to look at my life and what I wanted, maybe it's because of the success, maybe because money. We had multiple homes, cars, and all that stuff. But because of that, maybe I didn't look down deep in what I really wanted. I thought it was just come to me, right? Yeah. Once I was stuck and I said, man, okay, what do I want to do? I want to do something that gives me the same amount of joy, if not more, than when I was playing ball. That's what I want to do. I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to do. But first, I figured out I need to find out who I am. So I started to look at, and with my coach, who spent time with me in different environments, he gave me a diagnostic after spending months with me, seeing me reach out to different people. We worked out together, we traveled, and he said, Alex, one of the things about you is you're friendly, you're a good guy, but you are transactional, very transactional, meaning you treat people differently based off who they are, the title that they have. You treat people differently. I was confused. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Harsh.
He said, yeah.
Were you surprised?
And when I was training, I was a trainer at Nike World Headquarters for 15 plus years. And he spent time with me there. And so he said, yeah, man, you treat the people at the front desk differently than you treat that executive. I was like, what? Yeah, the whole thing is totally different. You're super cool with that, but the other guy, you're very transactional. Hey, yeah, take here. I'm at the front desk and I just wave them by. And instead of like with people who I know who they had titles of, hey, what's up? What's good with you? I treat them differently. And that's dangerous because you don't know what either person could do for you or your business. Treat everybody like an asshole. But if you're going to treat people one way, treat them all like that. So the one thing, Mel, is I knew how to practice. I know what helped me become what I did in football. It was because of practice. I was very intentional with practice. And so now I take that same, okay, how do I practice being not transactional, but relational? I do it when I go to the coffee spot. Anything that's transactional, like I'm paying for something, I try to build a relationship, not in a creepy way, but I ask them, hey, how are you doing? I look them right in their eye and I smile, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Before I'm there to get whatever I want, I don't care if it's male or female, whatever binary, hey, how are you doing? And you'd be surprised on people's reactions. What?
Yeah.
I start to practice not being transactional and being relational. That really helped me get out of that, being transactional. You have to practice being who you want to be. You have to practice that. So it becomes who you are. Me and my wife, we have eight children. So I know that there's eyes watching me wherever I go, especially when I bring them, even when I don't bring them. But I want them to see, man, this is how you talk to somebody who can possibly do nothing for you. This is how you treat them with respect. And this is how you get respect. You know what I'm saying? It started, yeah. So I started, but
that's what I wanted.
But for me, it was like, okay, alignment. How am I going to align my life? And so for me, I started to think my family is here. I was like, okay, family's first. Right? And then my career came second. And then my health was maybe third. My friendships was fourth. And then my faith was fifth. When I really look at my life and how I prioritize, the time that I put is, I was like, okay, this isn't working. What can I do? How can I change this? I'll never forget, I had a conversation with our second son. He was getting married. And I had a conversation like the day before the wedding with his pastor who was going to be marrying them. I told him about that, right? And he said, Alex, have you ever thought about it like this? Instead of you stacking those things on top of each other, what if it was like your family was one stone and then your health was another stone, not stacked on top, but right next to it? And what if your career was another stone and your relationships was one other? But then you have all that stuff bubble wrapped in your faith. So now, wherever you go, any conversation you have, you're not necessarily preaching. You're just being able to, your faith should be able to, people should be able to see it in any environment. And I loved how that framework. And so I've put that in wherever, with my relationships, my health, all that stuff, my faith bubble wraps all of that. That's how I keep in alignment.
I love that thinking instead of the stacking, because then it makes you force things versus the flexibility of the wrapper that you have with it.
That's right there. Because before, if I would stack it, then I was like, okay, I got to spend time with my family, or I got to take these trips, but then I also got to work out. If I don't work out every day, I'm going to feel a certain way. And then I got to get into the word and go to church and all that stuff. Man, what if I can go to church right now? I'm having a conversation about my faith right now.
I love your self-discovery journey, because so many people are finding themselves there, especially now, right? We lived through a pandemic, political climate, all the stuff, and then just the everyday stuff we deal with as people, right? It's a poignant time for everyone to pause, and this reflection work is so incredibly important. And full disclosure, I'm also a coach, so I appreciate this work because I just think it's so good. What surprised you most about going through this process? What surprised you most about yourself, and then just in general?
I think what surprised me most is how difficult it was, because I've been living in a certain way for so long, and things were, for the most part, easy. because of the skill that I had in this sport. There was things that happened, like relationships that came my way, opportunities that came my way based off of what I did in the past. And even now, I never thought that the football I would still be benefiting from it almost 26 years from my last down playing. So that was the difficult part. But realizing alignment, which I just talked about, but then assignment, right? Assignment was figuring out, like, what am I here to do? What did God put me on this earth to do? And for the longest, I thought it was football. And maybe that's something that God has put you on this earth to do for that limited amount of time. But Mel, you're going to have 8 jobs, right? You're going to have 8 jobs. And man, I thought I was just going to be a football player forever. You start to figure out what is your assignment. For me, it took me a while. And when I started to chisel it out, I was like, hold on. After football, I did some research. I started digging about me and what lights me up. I want to help the younger versions of Alex. I didn't grow up playing the sport. I was athletic, and I still am trying to figure out, like, how did this happen? My dad didn't play sports. He was on a swim team for 1 year. My mom didn't play sports. She was smaller with long arms. Man, how did that happen? Why am I? And so I wanted to start to pour into these people because somebody poured into me. I used to go to the boys club, and I met this guy. His name was Ron, and he was the director of sports. He ran the gym. And man, I remember just hanging out with him, and he taught me how to lift weights. And man, it was such a positive person. And so I wanted to be that to other people. And so I started training athletes, and then I started training people at Nike. And then once I got this whole framework with alignment, assignment, adjustment, man, now I was at Nike and people found out about me because I train differently. I train individuals like athletes instead of like just in the weight room. Then I started getting to speaking because people found out at Nike's campus, former athlete, former NFL player who well-spoken, and they bring me in and they talk team. We want to hear about team. And I was like, okay. So I started talking, telling stories, but I wasn't really connecting the dots until I got somebody who has been there. I got a coach, and he started helping me. Yeah, stories is cool, but how is this story going to help somebody in their career or help them become a better leader or help them be a better communicator? How can you tie it back to the foundation of whatever that story was? How can you tie it back so it relates to them? That's when I started to get joy, the same amount of joy when I was playing football and when I first started training athletes. Now that has changed. Yeah, I still speak, but now I do more consulting work with different companies. I'm a personal development and leadership coach. So I get one-on-one time with my clients. For me, there's no off limits. If somebody works with me, they can't be, we want to do this, Alex, but we're not going to touch on personal life. I just want you to help me become a better leader professionally. I said, no, I'm not the right person for you. Because I know if you don't develop the character, you're giving somebody the freedom to hold you accountable to the person that you want to be. Because I don't believe in you being one person in one environment at work, and then you drive up in your driveway and you take off that work hat and you put on your family or husband cap, and then I don't believe in that. So I understand I am different. But those are the things that really drive me. That I love waking up and I get to be able to pour into people. I want to make this my assignment, make this world a better place by pouring into leaders. And we're all leaders. There's just different levels, just like anything else, right? Especially for athletes, leadership is influence. When you boil it down, it's influence. I want to help those influencers influence others in a positive way.
I love the fact that the work on yourself is not easy. Anyone that's been on this journey, and it's not like a month-long journey, it's this ever-evolving thing. There's a lot of people going through this right now. And I'm curious about, where do you think people should start? I'll tell you, Mel and I talk to folks all the time where they've just retired, they just got laid off, they are thinking about a pivot. Where do they need to start?
That's perfect. That rolls right into Francesca. We've been hanging around each other a lot then, because that rolls
Yeah.
right into adjustment, right? So how do people adjust? First, you need to find out, like, okay, they have to be honest with themselves, right? Maybe they've been doing this career, doing this thing that start to become their identity. And it happens to many of folks. I'm not the only one. So first you have to understand, like, man, who you are. At the core of it, who you are, not what you do, but who you are. Taking an introspective look. What do I love? What am I good at? What lights me up? What do I hate? Start to take that information. Okay, these are the things that I'm going to stand on. For many of us, you have to create a new standard for your life. Right? I needed to create a new standard because I treated people a certain way, and I was treated. There was many times I was used, and I was okay with it. I didn't know it, but based off of me saying yes, somebody using my relationships or using my platform without me even giving them permission to, it was used. Now I look at it totally different. People first need to understand influence, who they are, who they want to be. What do I want to achieve? What do I want to do? I need to adjust and learn how to influence people. You can do it with your words. You can do it with your smile. You can do it with your platform. You can also do it with your ability. I did it for a lot of years with my ability to play football.
Yeah. I love that. When I talk to other people, I hear this a lot. Like they've evolved, they've pivoted, and then they either miss their past selves or elements of their past selves, or sometimes they feel shame about their past selves. They do this whole I could have, I should have, I would have. And I'm curious about, as they're going into their pivot, what would be your advice for someone who's doing the whole shame walk about who they used to be?
Okay, I'll tell a story. My freshman year at Oregon, I ended up rupturing my ACL.
Ouch.
And
Yikes.
it was done, I thought it was like a dirty play, right? I thought it was a dirty play until I watched the film. And I was like, hold on, that wasn't dirty. I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't doing what I was taught. You're always taught to, when it's a run, you need the eyes go to the receiver, defeat the block, and then make the play. What happened before, 30 minutes before that play, is I got an interception for a touchdown. And so that success made me skip different things that I was taught. Process it. So now I'm 19 years old. I'm on TV. It's a bowl game. And I want to make every play. After that one play, I want to make every play. And that lack of discipline taught me something. It took me 9 months to get back to where I was supposed to be. And so when I look back at that moment, I used to tell stories. I made it to the NFL, first round draft pick, 8 years, all this type of stuff, in spite of an ACL repair that should have ended my career. But when you really dive down deep and you start to look, when I start to look at it, I was like, hold on. Wait, that wasn't in spite of. It was because of that I was able to play 8 years and be a first round draft pick. Because when you look at what it created, you look at it at the positive, right? I got an interception, scored a touchdown. So I'm feeling top of the world. But that lack of discipline caused something else to happen. So then I paid the price. But what it created was, now that gift that was given to me was taken away. And I might have lost appreciation for it. But now I appreciated it because I worked so hard to get to where I was. And it created relationships that pushed me to become better. And so when I look at it, I was like, man, I don't look back at that as, man, feeling shame or whatnot. I said, man, what did it do for me? It created me to be a beast, more of a beast that I thought I could become. And so, yeah, I don't look at my life, I don't go back there and feel shame. I was 19 years old. And there's other people, they go back and it's like, man, that was version Alex 2.0.
Yeah.
I'm on version 5.0 right now. And so I can see things differently. I can see opportunities. I know when to say no. And I feel really good saying no. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
So
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a metaphor. That person got you here, and all those lessons got you here too. Also, I really wish someone would refer to me as a beast at some point in my life. Like, I would really like that. That's my new life goal.
Starts with yourself. I have to tell
I know
myself.
that's the new alignment. Beast
That's
mode.
what I'm talking about.
Yes. One last question for you, Alex. What should someone do tomorrow? What's like the one quick move that they could be doing tomorrow?
The biggest thing is to first ask themselves, are they okay with where they're at? Are they okay where they're at, or do they want to go further? Or are they stuck? That's the first question. And the second question would be like, okay, who do I need to become to reach this goal or do this thing? I want to start my own business. I want to start a podcast. I want to get this VP position. Who do you need to become? And you might not know. That's when you got, okay, do I know somebody, or do I know somebody that knows somebody that can sit down and have a cup of coffee with me? I can ask them questions about the position, the role. What is it to start a podcast? How difficult is it? What type of equipment do I need? Do you have the capability to reach those goals? Where do you want to go? Who do you need to become? And what relationships do you need to align to get you there?
Beast mode. Love
Let's
it.
go.
Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. This was great. And I hope to be on again. You guys are doing some dope stuff.
If you haven't been listening for a while, or you're catching up, or you're new here, we launched a newsletter. If you want one meaty, insight-driven email a month where we share frameworks that you can implement for yourself, for your team, for your org, sign up over on yourworkfriends.com, and you can listen to the pod every Tuesday. We drop new episodes. So check it out and subscribe, leave us your feedback, and reach out to us at friend@yourworkfriends.com.
Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.